I was shocked when I caught wife with AP, but then I found out there were 3 and now she's calling police because I said I'm showing proof to her family. A year ago, I found out my girlfriend of 5 years, whom I thought would be my wife and loved deeply, was cheating on me. It was by complete dumb luck that I obtained the proof. The chaos and randomness of the universe was turned in my favor that day, at least for a moment. But once I saw it, it was undeniable what had been occurring. She had been cheating on me for months with multiple men. And this is just what I had absolute proof of. No doubt there was far more than I will ever know. I will never forget that day. I will never forget that feeling. I felt the blood in my body run ice cold as I read message after message, each one further solidifying that my entire life was about to come crashing down. My entire perspective on my partner began to warp in my head. What I had previously believed did not align with what I was currently seeing. It felt like reality itself started to cave in. A part of me died that day that will never come back. Whether that is a good thing or a bad thing, I'm not even sure anymore. Only time will tell, I guess. After a few hours, I composed myself and planned to confront her. I gave her one last chance to tell the truth unprompted before I played my hand. I desperately did not want to have to do that. Even after reading and seeing everything, things that instantaneously destroyed my entire self-esteem in a matter of minutes, I still wanted to believe that she would at the very least come clean about it all without me showing her proof. I see now that I was nothing more than completely delusional at that point. How could I ever expect someone as duplicitous, selfish, cowardly, and dishonest as her to possibly give me the truth? She had already proven that's who she was. She was the first person I ever opened up to, physically and emotionally. I was utterly naive and had a blind optimism and trusting nature that she thoroughly exploited, and has since completely dissipated. I calmly but sternly sat her down and asked her if there was anything she needed to tell me. She said no. I asked if she ever cheated on me throughout our relationship. She said no. I asked if there was anything at all she lied to me about, and if there was to please just come clean about it. She said there was nothing. She acted utterly baffled that I would even ask these questions. As if there was no plausible reason I had to be asking them at all. I could feel the color retreat from my face as she answered each question. I could literally feel myself becoming pale. With each answer, I realized the person in front of me was someone I did not know. The highly romanticized idea of her in my head was completely severed from her actual self at last. I just sat in silence for a few seconds attempting to process what was going on, and how I was going to proceed. I asked her one last futile question: is there anything at all you need to tell me? Anything? Are you sure there's nothing? No, where is this coming from? Is something wrong? She replied. I was devastated and in utter disbelief. She forced me to play my hand. So I simply took a deep breath and began reading her messages to each of her boy toys out loud. Even as I read them aloud and looked over to her for her response, she acted confused as to why I was even reading them, and was acting as if nothing was wrong. As if these messages did not indicate anything out of the ordinary at all. Just normal conversation between friends. Which was strange to me, because I don't remember having any friends who I talked to about meeting up with for sex, hooking up, cuddling, or kissing. Call me crazy, but I don't send naked pictures of myself to my friends either, nor they to me. The more she played dumb as I read them, the more my anger grew. I felt like my head was about to explode. I remained calm on the outside. But internally, I was on the verge of going completely unhinged. I didn't let her manipulation tactics work on me. Not this time. I held all the cards and I knew it. After reading them all aloud probably 3 times without her even conceding she had done anything wrong, I went through message by message, explaining to her like you would to a toddler what each message meant, why it was wrong, and why it indicated she was cheating on me. She was a smart girl, she didn't need me to explain to her why a message explicitly stating she was going to meet up with someone for sex was cheating. Even still, she would argue with me about each message, attempting to minimize the implications of each one to the maximum degree. She lied, denied, and minimized as much as she possibly could. Finally, after I relentlessly laid out my case with each message, like a lawyer has to do in a courtroom, she saw that I wasn't falling for manipulative tactics and cracked. She cried and cried and cried. Woe was her. She said she felt so horrible about and guilty about it. She was feeling so depressed. The poor victim she was of this cruel world. She only did it to boost her self-esteem, she said. It's not what it seems, she said. She was thinking about telling me for days but didn't want to hurt me, so she decided she would carry the burden as punishment and never tell me, she said. But she also simultaneously told me she was planning to tell me in the next few days. Neither case made sense, given that this was not something that occurred in the far past. It was still ongoing, and she denied everything to the highest degree until I literally forced her to confess. And even still, she minimized as much as possible while confessing. She had been messaging one of her boy toys literally 2 days prior, while we were laying in bed together. She said she only did it because she thought I was cheating on her, and that she would stop when I stopped. I asked her what made her think I was cheating on her, if she had any proof at all. Crickets. I wasn't, never have, and never would cheat on anyone. She threw every possible excuse she could, hoping one would stick, and I'd believe it. She vomited so many so quickly through her crocodile tears that half of them contradicted each other. I felt like I was watching an entire person unravel in front of me. A ball of lies wrapped tightly together, finally being pulled apart by the loose thread. It felt like I wasn't even looking at a human being anymore, but some sort of vile creature attempting to imitate one, but failing ever so slightly. I truly contemplated whether she had some sort of personality disorder, or was a psychopath/sociopath to some degree. It was genuinely unsettling and disturbing to watch her unravel. There were many other horrible things she did to me throughout our relationship as well. I was young and inexperienced, and kind-hearted. The perfect target for someone like that. I treated her like gold while she misused me emotionally constantly and love-bombed me until I would forgive her. And then do something worse. And then love-bomb me until I forgive her. And then do something worse. And the cycle would repeat. Until eventually she just treated me horrible without remorse, culminating in her ultimate betrayal. The only reason she attempted to show, faked remorse, was because it was clear I finally had enough of her and her immoral behavior. I ended things. To add insult to injury, she told her family, who I loved like my own family, who I did so much for that it would be too much to write out in this post, that I was the one who cheated on her. She had a younger cousin who she was close with, and who lived with her family. I treated her like my own flesh and blood and truly loved her like a little sister. She is only a child, so I obviously don't hold it against her, but she messaged me sending very nasty things after my ex, and I broke up because she told her that I was the one who cheated on her. It completely shattered my already broken heart. This little ball of innocence that I truly loved and cared for, turned against me in the worst possible way over a complete perversion of the truth. And I knew she probably turned the rest of her family against me as well. I wanted to message back and defend myself and say I wasn't the one who cheated, it was her, but I was so beyond my breaking point that I simply blocked my ex and her entire family on everything, and went no contact. I knew it was futile to try and get into an argument with her family members about what happened. And I surely wasn't going to show a child the disgusting messages my ex sent to her APs to exonerate me in her eyes. Since that day, I have barely felt human. I am only in my late 20s, but feel as if I have lived 1,000 years. Every day is going through the motions. I walk around like a zombie, taking care of the responsibilities that I must like work, while in complete misery on the inside. I cannot remember the last time where I woke up and felt anything other than negative emotions. My self-esteem is less than zero. Most days I find myself literally hating myself. I don't care about anything anymore. My former hopes and dreams have vanished. I barely can force myself to get out of bed. I have anger inside me like never before. Always brimming right beneath the surface. Boiling away at my being. I am at the darkest place I have ever been in my life. I have constant thoughts of revenge that I refuse to act on. I have intrusive thoughts of me doing violent things to myself. I have no desire to actually do anything violent to myself. I am not suicidal or anything like that, but I have these videos play in my head of me doing something like that. I don't know how to quite explain it. I just have a visualization of me doing something like that, without any desire to actually do it. I simply just observe it happening, if that makes sense. Nearly all of this, as a direct result from the relationship with my ex. I am not here for advice. I have completely no contact with my ex, despite her many attempts to circumvent that to win me back and prove how much she really loves me. I go to the gym, and I'm in great shape. I have many great friends whom I spend time with, and a great family of my own. I do not burden them with my pain. I try my best to put on a brave face and suffer in solitude. I have hobbies and a great career too. But the moment that busyness stops, the thoughts flood my brain like a tsunami. The negativity weighs me down like an anvil tied to my neck. Edit: to clear things up for some people, my ex and her family do not interact with anyone in my life. So she isn't going around to people I know telling them I'm the bad guy, she only told her family that. It still hurts obviously after everything I've done for them, and the love me and her family shared, but it doesn't affect my current life/relationships. Everyone who knows me knows what actually happened. I don't even know why I made this post. I guess just to vent/rant. It is difficult to keep it all to myself sometimes. Maybe someone who has cheated or is thinking about cheating will better come to understand the gravity of their actions by reading this. Most likely not if they ever considered such a selfish, cowardly, and disgusting thing in the first place. Perhaps one of you has experienced something similar, and we can feel better together through our shared experiences. To know that someone else has experienced the same pain as us. That is part of being human. Anyone who read this, thank you for taking the time. I apologize for the length and don't wish to bring anyone's spirits down. I wish you positivity and peace in your life. Be kind. Be respectful. Be honest. Be a person of integrity. Spread love, laughs, and smiles. Not sadness, suffering, and pain. Treat others as you would want to be treated. Something we all are taught so young, but many seem unable to grasp. We have reached the end of the story. Let's listen to some of the comments by our Reddit listeners. Comment 1. I would have just sent the messages and kindly told them to duck off, their daughter's a skank. OP reply. I see where you're coming from, and in some sense I agree. I am very much a the truth will set you free kind of person. However, another thing I didn't elaborate on was that my ex is not just a cheater, but genuinely crazy and extremely vindictive. She has threatened to call the police and lie to them, and say I hit her several times throughout our relationship when she was in one of her narcissistic rages, and damaged my property when she was upset with me. She is a very misusive person. If I told her family the truth, I feel she may retaliate in some way. I feel like taking that into account as well as what I mentioned before makes it not worth it. Do you agree, or do you think it's still worth telling her family? This was almost my exact thought process. A large dangerous animal that you're now well away from. That is exactly how I view her now, and why I've chosen to let sleeping dogs lie. Any weakness I expressed to her, as simple as something that bothered me, she would inevitably exploit to the fullest extent to make me feel horrible, then get upset when I stopped opening up to her, love bomb me, and apologize until I open up again, and then repeat. I don't intend to experience her vengeance just so that maybe her family, who is not in my life anymore, knows the truth. It isn't worth it. In terms of her family, they definitely do share some similar traits. There is a lot of mental illness, pill problems, and general dysfunction in her family. Her family obviously never hurt me the way my ex did, though there were several times where I felt they let me down by enabling my ex's behavior to some extent. They were dealing with a very difficult person as well though, my ex, who is also their blood, and they almost all have some serious issues themselves, so I was relatively understanding that it was a difficult situation for them and loved them like my own family despite their various flaws. But I agree that staying no contact with them as well was the right move. I do not wish them ill, but I do not want to ever hear or see any of them ever again. Comment 2. I'm surprised you never showed your ex's family some of the cheating text between her and her affair partners. I would never want the lies out there, letting your ex get away with it. You finally didn't stand for it. You should have shown your ex family the true reasons. But otherwise, I'm glad you got out of that toxic relationship. If they wish to ignore the truths and continue to bask in the lies, it will chip away at their souls. When people say that truth will set you free, it doesn't mean that truth will set them free. OP reply. I didn't expound upon it in the post, but despite the fact I love them, her family were very much enablers to her bad behavior most of the time. For that reason and some others, I felt that it would cause me more harm than good to even attempt to show them the truth, especially if they ended up siding with her even in this situation, which they very likely would have given their previous behavior. I see where you're coming from, and in some sense I agree. I am very much a the truth will set you free kind of person. However, another thing I didn't elaborate on was that my ex is not just a cheater, but genuinely crazy and extremely vindictive. She has threatened to call the police and lie to them, and say I hit her several times throughout our relationship when she was in one of her narcissistic rages, and damaged my property when she was upset with me. She is a very misusive person. If I told her family the truth, I feel she may retaliate in some way. I feel like taking that into account as well as what I mentioned before makes it not worth it. Do you agree, or do you think it's still worth telling her family? I am scared to tell my BF I'm pregnant because he actually wants a child. My boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years. I just found out I'm pregnant by home test, not yet doctor confirmed, and I don't want to tell my boyfriend at all. For those probably wondering, it's 100% his baby. I haven't been with anyone but him in the last 3 years. But the reason I don't want to tell him is because he wants kids and knows I do not ever want to give birth. I am not against adopting one day. It's something we've discussed at length in the past, and we've both seemed to accept the other's stance and come to agreements with compromises. I'm afraid one of two things will happen if I tell him. He'll try to change my mind and convince me to want to keep the baby. Or he will think it couldn't be his because we've never had so much as a scare in the last 2 years, and he's expressed in the past he thinks he could be shooting blanks. Another reason he's been fine with adoption, but also why I think if I told him, he would find it a miracle. I love my boyfriend, but I don't think I can ever tell him about this or about me getting in termination. Giving birth to a child would destroy me, both physically and mentally. Telling him would ultimately be the demise of our relationship. Not telling him could also completely destroy me, because I've only ever lied to him about fast food receipts. Before I make any steps I need to of course get it confirmed by a doctor. But I've taken about 10 tests at this point and they're all positive. Regardless, I think this is the end of my relationship. Has anyone ever gone through an termination within a relationship and been able to come out the other side? Edit. Hello everyone, I appreciate everyone's feedback. I want to note, I'm truly not trying to be a crafty person, I am just awfully terrified. This was not something I was anticipating as we are, and have always been extremely careful. I will be going to the doctors tomorrow to get confirmation, and directly after that I will be speaking with my boyfriend about it all. After lots of consideration before even being able to get to all these comments, I came to the realization myself that this is not something I can keep from him. Lying or lying by omission, it's just not who I am and not what our relationship is based on. We've had a beautiful couple of years together, and I do hope he will be understanding. For those convinced he wants a bio kid, this has never been the case in any of our discussions. He's always been open to fostering/adopting, or even surrogacy, because giving birth is just not an option for me because of my health. It's not that I don't want to do it, or that I don't want kids. For my safety, I can't do this. I promise I would much rather be a perfectly healthy 28-year-old woman not having to make a decision like this. I've had my daughter's name picked out since I was 10. This is not how I envision my life going. We have reached the end of the story. Let's listen to some of the comments by our Reddit listeners. Comment 1. I have a question. What type of contraception are you using that makes him think that he is shooting blanks? If you are so opposed to being pregnant and knew you would terminate, What made him believe that it should have been easy to get you pregnant? Are you just not using any and counting on not getting pregnant? OP reply. I'm on the pill, I take it correctly 100% of the time. I've also never said he's claimed he's sterile, he's just joked about since we've never had any scares. And I brought up to him that if he actually is serious about that he should find out, but by his own choice he hasn't wanted to. We've discussed kids at length. We've been on the same page for 2 years that we don't want to involve babies or kids into our relationship until we are closer to our mid-30s. He's always understood that giving birth is not an option for me. Not mentioned in the post, but I've had 2 miscarriages when I was younger, without ever knowing I had been pregnant beforehand. The likelihood of me even being able to give birth to a healthy baby is slim. Why would I ever want to plague a baby with my crap health genetics? Regardless, after lots of careful thought and reading through the comments on this post, I've decided my initial thoughts are mostly just based in fear. Once I get doctor confirmation of the pregnancy, the first thing I will be doing is speaking with my boyfriend and we'll come to the decision together, I hope. I hope that he will see it as what's best for me and my health, and if he loves me and cares for me the way he claims, then he will be supportive. Comment 2. If you can't bring yourself to sit down and talk to your boyfriend about your pregnancy, that is a huge red flag. Your boyfriend deserves to know you're pregnant, just as much as you know. I'm not going to sit here and tell you one way or the other on how to approach the pregnancy itself, but I will say this: it took you and your boyfriend to conceive, so he needs to know.